loving and gracious God, we ask now that you empty us of ourselves and fill us with your Holy Spirit, that we may be renewed and refreshed by your living word. We thank you now. Amen. Well, promises, promises, promises. How many of you have ever had a promise that's been broken?
Don't mic on.
I'm not on. Fix that.
Yes.
Okay. So let me just say it again. How many of you ever had a promise that's been broken? Oh, goodness, we had about 100%. You know, we start off as kids, you know all the kind of things we used to do, pinky promise. Remember that one as a kid? And then it was that awful one that we learned, you know, cross my heart, hope to die, stick a needle in your eye. That should have came with a disclaimer, don't do this at home, right? You know, why do we teach our kids that one? I just don't know, you know. And then, of course, you know, there's the politicians' promises, and we'll just leave that right there, right? Makes us real confident in them, right? Yeah, yeah. And then there's, you know, the thing about growing up and parents telling you all about Santa Claus. Big letdown, huh? Yeah. And even worse, the Easter Bunny. My mother used to take and slice carrots, and she would have little carrot shavings out from underneath the sink in the kitchen to the Easter basket. So I guess the Easter Bunny came out from under the sink. So I was devastated when I found out about that one. Yeah. Well, despite our best intentions, and as honorable as they are, our promises are subject to our human frailties and realities, aren't they? Yeah, yeah. Now, it's very different when we talk about God's promises, isn't it? Because God's promises are tied to God's character. And we think about among them is the promise of God's grace. For times when we do fall short on our promises to one another, and maybe even to God, we know that we are recipients of God's grace. God's unmerited, unfailing, undying, unconditional love for each of us. So the wonder of God's promise at Christmas is that Emmanuel, God came to be with us. God is not a distant God, not a faraway God. It's a God that's accessible to each and every one of us at all times. We don't need anyone else to access God. God is here for you now, in this moment. That's the promise and the wonder of Christmas and of Emmanuel, God with us. And it says, born unto you is a Savior. Unto you. Unto you. So Emmanuel is not only God with us, it is God with you. You believe that? I want you to, if you're willing, would you stand for a moment? We've all sang this song here, we are standing on holy ground. We are standing on holy ground. You know why it's holy? Not because God's in the ground, because God is within you. God is with you in this moment. So therefore, where you are standing is holy ground. Right? So turn to your neighbor and say, you're standing on holy ground. Okay, that sounds like a lot more than holy ground. Okay, you can be seated. All right, you can be seated. You got carried away. You're on holy ground, holy tomorrow, and holy next week by the time we're through. Yeah. So let's hear some of the ways and some of God's promises just to be reminded of them. Because it said that Emmanuel, God is with us, God is with you. But listen to this. For God so loved the world that God sent us
His only begotten Son.
Jesus. And then in other scripture it says, Lo, I will be with you always, to the end of time. Always. What's always mean? Always. And then there's the one I love. It says, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, and no mind has conceived what God has in store for those who love God. Isn't that beautiful? These are the promises that peace will prevail even during these chaotic and difficult times and challenging times in our world. In the end, peace will prevail. Justice will roll down like streaming waters, in spite of sometimes what we see as droughts and compassion and equality and justice in our world. But that's God's promise, not my promise, not our promises, not a pinky promise. It's the promise of God that love indeed will have the final word. Love will have the final word. And you know what? I heard this the other day. It says, you will never break God's promises by leaning into them. You will never break God's promises by leaning into them. So God's promises are unlike any other promises there are. God says, I am the Alpha and the Omega. I am the beginning and the end. I am the same today, yesterday, and tomorrow. I am with you for all time. So God's promises don't change. Got that? Now, if you're like me, though, at times, we often allow our external circumstances to dictate our trust and our faith in God's promises. There's nothing wrong with our feelings. Feelings are feelings. They're okay to have. However, they're not always the facts. Now, if we have a situation where we're in a difficult situation and we can forget about God's promises and have it all be about that external circumstance that's going on, right? So how do we then, hold on to God's promises even during those challenging times, even when those external circumstances aren't exactly what we want them to be? I think that it's one thing to recognize and acknowledge our feelings, but another to understand and hold on to the thought that God's promises haven't changed in spite of my circumstances. Right? Because God, in all of God's promises, I've read them over and over again, and I can't find any that says that life will be without challenges. Huh? Anybody see that in there? That it would be perfect? That'd be boring, I think. That we will get everything we want? I didn't see that in there either. But it does say that God will be with you always. That God's peace is always there for you to access. That God's love is within you and with you in this moment and always. And so, we were reminded that no matter what our external circumstances are, that God is indeed with us and God's promises hold true, and we can stand on those promises and we can't break them by leaning into them. Amen? Amen. So then in the final book of Revelation, it says, you will never again will they hunger. Never again will they thirst. The sun will not be upon them, nor any scorching heat. For the Lamb at the center of the throne will be their shepherd, And he will lead them to springs of living water. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. In the end, God always has the final word, and it's one of love and one of beauty. Our challenge today and every day is to hold on to God's great and precious promises, even in the face of adversity. To balance our feelings with the facts of God's precious promises. And when we do, we can experience and celebrate a wonderful life and help others to experience and see the wonder of God's love.